How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and welcome to World of Tanks console and the new line that we will probably be getting on March 9th. It's the Polish mediums. Obviously, there was a leaked picture of the CS52 list as part of the Season Pass package that you can pick up. Whether this is definitely guaranteeing that we'll get the Polish mediums as the next update, I think it's highly likely. I think that the last update that we received was 4.4 gigabytes, and that's quite a big one, even for two maps being updated. I genuinely think that it was probably this new line that came in as part of that, and also a few other little things. We got the new tanks as well, so if you want to check out what I think the other tanks as part of the season, then go ahead at the end of this video and check out my last one on the tanks news and the leak that Wargaming kind of had, where basically we were able to see the next season's tanks that are coming in. So what is the Polish mediums about? Basically speed and manoeuvrability, and having pretty poor guns, I'm not going to lie, when you use that speed and mobility. First off, it comes in at tier 5, with the first bit of the line coming in from the tier 4. So if you want to, save up a bit of XP on the tier 4 to be able to instantly buy the tier 5 or save up some free XP, then definitely do it over the course of this weekend to be able to blast your way through all of these tanks to get the tier 10 as fast as possible, if you really want to be one of those that, owns the first Polish medium in the game from launch. So what can you do now then? We'll have a look at what they're all about and kind of see whether they're actually any good or whether you should really focus on getting them or not. And in my personal opinion, it's not going to be a big priority of mine to be able to do it unless you guys really want me to grind down this line straight away. I will do that, but you'll have to leave your comments in the section down below to be able to kind of give me an insight as to whether you actually want me to do that or not. But first things first, the tier 5 Polish medium tank. 1456 DPM at tier 5 is not bad. You've got 135 damage on its top gun. If we take these with a pinch of salt, because the problem is this could be all subject to change because it is console, and the thing that we're looking at is PC because it's the only reference we really have in terms of the Polish mediums for us to be able to contrast and see what's what. Obviously, I will be looking at the top, the actual fully upgraded tanks rather than the packages. But obviously these are the top stats that you could possibly achieve in the tank in terms of maximizing like how playable the tank actually is, because obviously you could have a gun that has more DPM, but realistically are you going to want to take the hit to the penetration and the damage for the sake of 100 extra DPM? Probably not, in my opinion. So what does this tank offer? If we look at the 3D model, it's got no armor, to be honest with you. You really don't have much of a chance of bouncing. I mean, at tier 5 maybe a turret could bounce a few at a silly angle if it's like angled there, but I very much doubt that you'll be bouncing very much. The front is pretty flat at the top, and you're looking at about 60 millimeters of armor. You don't want to actually be hitting this flat plate at the front because it's not actually a weak point. It's actually one of the strongest bits of the tank, and so aiming at the higher bit of the upper hole is where you want to do, but realistically every single tier 5 pretty much has enough penetration to be able to go through you, so I wouldn't worry about that. What else does this get? It gets pretty terrible dispersion, 0.37. That's not fantastic. That's at 100 meters, so I don't know that I like that too much, especially on a tank that's meant to be fast. Not particularly great. You do get a decent bit of gun depression at 8 degrees, which is always fantastic. 15 degrees of elevation is not the most, I'm not going to lie, but you're not going to have too much trouble with elevation in terms of being able to shoot people above you. What else should we focus on? I'm pretty sure that's that's all we really need to go into with this tank. I mean, it's not going to be one that anyone's going to be really focusing at playing, to be honest. I don't think many people are going to want to 3-mark this or even really play this tank for very long, other than to get the tier 6, which I believe is actually a decent tank. The BUGI, or Buggy, is actually a tank that it looks kind of fun. I'm not going to lie, it gets a decent gun at tier 6 anyway. You can get a gun with, a derp gun basically, that can deal 400 damage. That would be fun, but the problem is your penetration suffers quite considerably. And if you want to fire AP, you do get really good pen, but you do take that damage hit. So to be honest, I think the derp gun is the one I'd use on this tank. I mean, you could say about using the 240 alpha damage gun, just for the ability to fire premium rounds that have 200 pen, and you'll pretty much go through everything. But yeah, I think the derp gun will be fun for those of you who are into your derp guns, firing the AP rounds, and even HE against some lightly armoured tier 5s and tier 4s as well. You should be able to take them out in one shot. I think this tank has genuinely got a bit more of a opportunity for you to have some really good games in it, especially with the new accuracy, where you can really drop this down to, probably 0.35. For a derp gun's really, really good at tier 6. So yeah, I think definitely this tank should be better than the other one. You don't really get armor on the hull, to be honest with you. The lower plate's really weak, and the only places where you're probably not going to get penned is the very top at a steep angle, but then again, pretty much everyone can go through the front of you. So where they're going to be auto aiming is pretty much a auto pen with any tier 6. The turret armor, however, is probably a little more bouncy, but anyone with decent pen at the tier should be able to go through you fairly reliably, and I wouldn't really rely on your armor in this tank. So, it's a bit like a Sherman in terms of what it looks like if we go to the visual model. So realistically, you want to be using it a little bit like a Sherman with a derp. It's a very interesting tank, and it should actually be quite fun. Use that speed, 55 kilometers an hour forward. Definitely use it. And then you've got 8 degrees of gun depression, so you can actually use it on a hill. This one gets more elevation, so you're not going to have any problems with that. And using the gun depression should be more than fun for you on a ridgeline. I think this tank could definitely be good. And I think it's going to be the one out of the line that is probably the funnest at the starting tiers anyway. Moving on to the tier 7, the CS44. This looks like a pretty shocking tier 7, if I'm going to be really honest. You've got horrible dispersion on your top gun. For a tank that does 240 alpha, 0.37 is not great. I'm not entirely sure I like that. And with the 1478 DPM with the top gun, certainly something I wouldn't be interested in personally. And it really gets terrible if you want that 300 alpha damage. But if you want the higher DPM gun, you actually get worse aim time, you get worse penetration and worse damage. So it's really up to you whether you want to use the 300 damage gun. You do get good penetration with heat, 220mm, so you'll be able to go through tier 9s fairly reliably with that. And you can use your mobility really well, 57 kilometers an hour forward. This one gets less gun depression, which means that you aren't going to be as good on a ridgeline of only 6 degrees, which is actually really annoying in terms of using it as kind of a glass medium. I don't think that these things are going to be particularly overpowered, or you're going to get really frustrated about how overpowered they are in game and stuff like that. I think for what I would say, they could probably do with a buff, a little bit better gun handling. I mean, on console, obviously, we have the accuracy buffs to be able to do that, and so I think they might be a slightly better, but that's kind of up to people's interpretation. Obviously, we don't know yet, and I'll try and give a bit of a tank review on them as I actually obtain them myself in game. What does this thing actually look like in terms of armour? no armor really. I mean, the turret gets a little bit better. You might be able to bounce tier 6s and tier 4s, tier 5s even, but tier 7s are probably just going to go through you, through the turret, and that's at the strongest part of the turret. I mean, the hull armor gets slightly better as well, so, you know, if they're auto-aiming you, it's probably going to hit this point where it's strongest, so, you know, you might have a chance, especially if you angle like this. They're probably going to struggle to actually go through this, so it gets a little bit of armor. But if they aim for any of your weak points, which are this bar here, and I mean this lower plate as well, as usual with most tanks, having the weakest bit at the lower plate, and then if they get any of your side armor, oh my god, it's going to be awful. Yeah, you'll get overmatched by any 155mm guns in the game as well, so don't show your armor to anyone like that, like an ISU 152. Yeah, because they'll go through you as well. Anything over 150mm of gun caliber is going to go through the side of you. So yeah, not particularly very fun. So don't side scrape very much in this tank unless you're against you know, other mediums, at which point you want to only be side scraping at like a ridiculous angle. Don't be giving them any of your front because they can hit this plate here. So that's pretty much the tier 7. I don't think it's particularly great in terms of the tanks other available, like, you know, you've got the Comet, the Panther, the Leo, any of the Russian ones. I mean, we can compare it to a couple of them. You know, I don't know. I just don't think that this tank is going to be particularly fantastic, and with pretty terrible DPM. Yeah. 12-second reload on a 300 alpha damage gun at tier 7 is, I don't know. And then moving on to the tier 8. This one, you know, decrease in speed from the previous one, but this tends to get a little bit more armor, I believe. It's a lot lower profile, and the turret seems to get a little bit better. But yet again, it's at that range where, you know, 2 tiers below might be able to bounce off you, but your tier are going to be able to pen you anywhere on the turret as long as they don't hit your gun, basically. Because even the mantlet is pretty poor. Yeah, what do I think then? I think this tank is going to be harder to hit, but it's not particularly fantastic. And especially stock, it's going to be painful, I believe. You get a bit better dispersion with your 300 alpha damage, better pen on the top gun. This is a tier 9 gun, so you'll be able to do a lot more with this tank, I think. 8 degrees of gun depression again, so you get more gun depression on this one. And you know, dispersion on the move isn't awful, but it's not particularly amazing. So realistically, you want the accuracy perks on these tanks to be able to make them really good. View range of 380 is pretty standard on mediums at this tier, so you'll be able to spot a little bit if you've got the spotting kind of equipment or perks on, or skills, or whatever you want to call them, commander skills. And yeah, you don't want to be brawling very much one-on-one with heavies in this tank, and you really want to be using it as a mobile, kind of get yourself into position, take a few side shots at tanks that can't shoot you back, and then preserve your health for the long game at the end of the game, and then kind of use your mobility to outspot and use your decent gun, I guess, in terms of DPM, to be able to use your health wisely at the end of the game. Yeah, I think this one's probably better than the tier 7, but it's not that much better, and you know, you're not that fast to warrant having some pretty terrible stats. The tier 9, this is starting to get in the region of actually being an okay tank to play. You get a lot more alpha now of 390, which is definitely a saving grace for this tank. Boost that DPM up massively from the previous tank. Means that, you know, you get better penetration, you reload quicker, you've got better stats on the move, your mobility is the same, and your armor gets upgraded a little bit, but still it's that region where, you know, you haven't got amazing armor, and the turret is just going to get absolutely obliterated by any of the similar tier. Mantlet on this, however, does actually get decent. So the only place you're going to be able to pen it is actually around the mantlet anywhere. So just don't shoot the mantlet, because that's the only place you'll bounce. You get some side armour, spaced armour, which means that people are going to find it a lot harder to pen you through the side with heat. And side scraping might actually be able to be done unless they're firing at you with a really high caliber gun. But even then, they won't overmatch your side unless they hit like this piece here in between the spaced armour. So watch out for that. Also, the very top part of your tank can be overmatched. So if anything's really tall, like a Death Star or an Viii 4005, they can overmatch a turret, which is not going to be fun. As well as if they see your engine deck, what sometimes you can do is if you're brawling with tanks that are lower down than you in the Viii 4005, you can overmatch their engine decks from in front. If you literally just catch a glimpse of it, you can just go straight through them and pen with your Hesh rounds. Definitely a tank I would be looking at, and it's fast. It's got a decent gun now, and you're probably looking at a tank that could maybe compete a little bit better. But yeah, definitely not one that's super overpowered or anything like that, and that's not what you really want to be looking at too much. Now, the tier 10 of the Polish medium lines is something a little bit different to all of the other ones. This thing has a weird mechanic where basically you can enter a kind of a speed mode where, once you enter the mode, it basically enables you to go a lot faster. So you'll see when I click to enter this fast mode, let's call it, you can go up to 70 kilometers an hour, which is rapid, and I mean rapid. You get better reverse speed, better power to weight and stuff like that, which means you'll get up hills faster. But then it's at the cost of your dispersion on the move. So your accuracy on the move becomes absolutely diabolical when you enter this fast mode. And then when you enter back into the normal mode, you see the dispersion goes down a massive amount. And you'll see that at the cost of your speed. So it's really about using this mode to be able to make yourself more mobile, get around the battlefield when you need to. But yeah, you do have to have a complete stop to be able to enter into this mode. So you can't do it on the move, which is kind of annoying because if you go in rapid and then to switch back out of that mode, then you have to wait a couple of seconds to switch back out and then you can start shooting at the opponent. So you want to put yourself in a position where you're in cover after like bombing it down one flank and then switch and then engage the opponent. You don't want to engage the opponent whilst you're already in this mode and then having to switch after that. So yeah, what's this about then, this tank? Basically, it's got the same gun as previously on the tier 9, except yeah, you can go faster. The premium rounds are decent. You've got 315mm of premium pen, so you'll go through pretty much everything you come up against. Decent view range, so you'll be able to spot, so long as you put the extra view range perks on. Your camo is okay, but not fantastic. You can definitely use this as a bit of a spotting buoy to be able to actually be really good at spotting the enemy team. That's kind of what you want to use them. Yet again, this tank has 8 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of elevation, so you shouldn't have worries with not being able to hit opponents that you're coming up against, just because of like the actual environment that you're in. So you should be fine with that. Yeah, and realistically, I think that this tank could be a lot better than the tier 9s. Do I think it's the best medium in the game? Hell no. I think it's pretty poor. Its armor is pretty terrible. Yeah, it's not the best, and I think that you kind of get that. It says that it has 260mm of turret armor, but that's just an absolute blatant lie. When you actually look at it, whether that's just... Yeah, it says it has 260 on the front, but it doesn't actually have 260 on the front. I think that's just the mantlet. So, yeah, turret of this thing is not good unless you hit the mantlet. But, yeah, other than that, that is pretty much the Polish mediums. Am I expecting them to be the exact same when they enter World of Tanks console? Probably not. I think, wargaming console could actually buff a few of these tanks to make them a bit better in general. But yeah, I think generally a buff to most of them wouldn't go amiss, and it wouldn't make them overpowered. I think it would make them a little bit more competitive with the other mediums that we already have in the game. This new mechanic could be quite fun for those of you who want to try out something new in the game, got a bit stagnant with all of the rest of them. But yeah, it could be really fun. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed having a look at what the medium tanks will be when they come into World of Tanks, whether this be on the 9th of March, as we hope it would be, or whether it will be on a day after that or not. But yeah, I'm expecting them really soon. And I hope you guys are kind of waiting eagerly to see them as well. But other than that, that is literally everything. If you want to check out the other video, that it should be linked on screen as to the other tanks that might be coming out as part of this season or next season's season pass. And also have a look at some other gameplay on my channel if you want. There'll be another random video linked to this video as well. So if you want to check those out. Remember to subscribe if you want to see some more content like this on World of Tanks console, and basically anything that comes out. I tend to do news videos, and this is kind of the sort of thing I'll be focusing on for the majority of my content. But other than that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.